Hello, welcome to another episode of the Oracle of God on the station. We talk about doctrines based in the Bible, doctrines of Christianity, various doctrines by various people on how best we can be truthful Christians or be strong Christians. We've been talking about tithing for the past episode, and a minister from the Church of Christ in Ghana, Brother Sheldrick Opon, has been helping us understand tithing. Today we have another person in the studios, the person of Apostle Jofel Apia Lagbe. He is from the Christ Testifies Ministry, also in Accra. He has a different view on tithing, and he's here also to share his opinions based on the Bible on why he tithes or why he does not tithe. Welcome to our studio, sirs.
Thank you.
Now, first of all, let me start with you, Sheldrick. Let's recap what we have done so far from the beginning of the session on tithing. That tithing is biblical from Abraham. That's when it started, and we got to the laws of tithing. Briefly, walk us through what
yes, when we started, I talked about the fact that God lived with Abraham. He had a covenant with Abraham. And at a point in time, Abraham went to a war, and then he received some items and decided to divide them into 10 and give one to Melchizedek because he was a king and a priest. And then we talked about the fact that that practice was in the ancient Asia, where they give a tenth of what they have.
That practice was
people.
Traditional.
It was traditional at that time. And then we move on to the fact that when you moved from that dispensation, that is the patriarchal dispensation, into the Mosaical, God made the law and then asked the people of Israel to pay 10% of whatever they will get from the land to the Levite. And then from which the Levite will also pay 10% of it to the priest. And then when we come into Christianity, we talk about the fact that we are not under that law. We are not under the Mosaical law. We are under a different dispensation. That is the Christian dispensation. And Hebrews 1 verse 1 says that God, who spoke to the fathers, has in this our time spoken to us through his Son. And so we have a new law, a new mediator. And so when we considered the book of Galatians in chapter 4 verse 21 going, where Paul said, those who want to obey the law, have they not heard about from grace? They are no longer beneficiaries of the death of Christ, meaning the blood of Christ does not cater for those who want to be under the Mosaical law. So basically, that is what signifying that as Christians we are not supposed to pay tithe. And
you mentioned also that there are some laws governing tithing.
Yes, we talked about 4 laws, which the first one is where the person, you are supposed to pay tithe to the Levite. And then we also talked about the fact that when you're paying the tithe to the Levite, there's a time that you're supposed to also pay some to yourself. That is Deuteronomy chapter 14 verse 22 downwards. And then there's a time you have to pay some of the tithe to strangers, and then orphans and widows. And then we have the 4th one, where the Levites who have collected the tithe every year also pay 10% of it to the priest, that is the descendant of Aaron. And then he says that when you're going to pay your tithe, even to the Levite, you need to be sure that there is a descendant of Aaron by the Levite when you pay the tithe.
So in essence, what you're trying to say is Christians are not supposed to pay tithe right now.
Yes, Christians.
You also mentioned that people who pay tithe are engaged, people who collect tithe from members are engaged in extortion. Yes,
you remember, you read it yourself when we read Galatians chapter 3, verse 19 downwards. From 22, it says that the law was a schoolmaster to bring us to Christ. And now that Christ has come, we are no longer under the schoolmaster. And we were trying to find out who was the schoolmaster. And the Bible says, it's the law. And so if we are not under the schoolmaster, because Christ had nailed the law to the cross, then why are we taking money from people based on the law, but do not want to practice the things under the law? Because if you are taking tithe, you should be able to also sacrifice animals. You should be able to obey
the whole package of the law.
And you remember what Paul said. That
hold on for me. Let me engage Apostle. Shadrach says we should not pay tithe according to the Bible. What do you say?
I'm also saying that when you read the book of Matthew chapter 5 verse 17, he says that I do not think that I have come to abolish the law of the prophets. I have come not to abolish them, but to fulfill them. So Christ did not come to abolish the law. Then, if he is saying that, then it means that he does not use that anymore. Does he read it? Does he quote from there? Does he use it as a catalyst?
Right. So in essence, you think Christians this day are also supposed to pay tithe?
If he is using the Old Testament, then he is supposed to practice it. Okay. If he is not using the Old Testament, if he has neglected the Old Testament, or he is talking about the law is coming from the Old Testament, so I will not pay tithe, then it means that he is not using the Old Testament. Then the Bible is not complete for him. Then he is using only the New Testament. If he is talking about the grace, then it means that he is using only the New Testament, but not the Old Testament.
Let me ask you, did Jesus ask Christians to pay tithe?
Jesus did not ask Christians to pay tithe. That is why I quoted Matthew 5:17, that he has not come to abolish the law, but he has come to fulfill it. Okay? So the fulfillment of the law is that he has come to put it at a higher place, so that you who is practicing the first one, which is the law, you know that he is also leading you somewhere. You cannot avoid the Old Testament entirely because of tithing.
Shadrach, what do you say to what he's saying?
I think the first thing that we need to let our viewers know is that if our apostle, a so-called apostle, is a student of the Bible, then he should know that if he wants to say that I am reading the Old Testament and that I should follow the practices of the Old Testament, then in the first place he has deviated from everything that he is doing.
What you're saying, that because you were saying tithing was a law, I mean, during the old times, and does not apply currently, that is why he brought the bit of the Old Testament.
Point is that he
it was just a basis.
Hold on,
yes, but his point is that once I am reading the Old Testament, Christ has not come to abolish the old, and therefore we should practice the things. And I'm saying that if that's the case, then the whole practice that he is doing in Christianity is null and void. Why? Because number one, he doesn't sacrifice animals. Does he? No. Number two, does he obey the Sabbath law? No. Number three, does he obey all the other laws in the Old Testament? No. And so how does he take some from the Old Testament and do not obey the rest? Remember when we read in Galatians chapter to obey everything. Now let me explain some things to you. Probably everybody will get to understand, whoever is watching us. What he quoted in Matthew chapter 7 is taken out of context. Jesus was talking to his disciples, and then what he said, there are certain things come. Genesis chapter 3 verse 15, Genesis chapter 12 verse 3, Genesis chapter 22 verse 18. All these things talk about the coming of Christ. Now when you come to Deuteronomy chapter 18 verse 15 to 19, it talks about Jesus coming. What probably a lot of people, like my brother here, don't understand is that when the Bible says Jesus has not come to destroy the law, it does not mean that the law was insufficient and he has come to make it full. No. What it simply means is that when we say the law in the context, it is talking about the Torah. That is the 5 books of Moses. Okay? And then when you continue, it says, I have not come to destroy the law, because all the things that the prophets have said about Jesus, Jesus came to fulfill them.
Shadrach, Apostle is saying that Jesus did not come to abolish the law. So in effect, it means that tithing, which was part of the law, as you mentioned, should not be stopped by today Christians.
Good. I think I heard what he was saying. And interestingly, if that is what Apostle is saying, then the law. Because according to Galatians chapter 5, the Bible says those who want to be under the law, they are indebted to obey every single thing under the law. And so if he has a follower of Christ want to, follow the law, then he has to do animal sacrifice. He has to obey the law that has to do with Sabbath. Does he do that? He has to do all the things in the law, those purification and all those things that are spelled out in the book of Exodus and then Leviticus and Numbers. He has to obey all of them, and he doesn't. And then he will tell you that, well, Christ to understand is that when it comes to the scriptures, people need to really take their time to study it well before they try to interpret. In Matthew chapter 5, where he quoted that Christ said he has not come to abolish the law. Most of the time, people think that it has to do with Jesus coming to make the law full. It's more like the law was insufficient and Jesus came to make it full. That is not the case. The law there, Jesus said, I have not come to destroy the law. That law there has to do with the 5 books of Moses. We call it the Torah. The 5 books of Moses, we are talking about Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. These 5 books talk about the things that Jesus will come and do. In Genesis chapter 3 verse 15, he says he will come as a seed of the woman, meaning only a woman will give birth to him. And then Genesis 12:3, Abraham will come from the descendant of Abraham. Genesis 22:18, come from Abraham. Deuteronomy 18 verse 15 to 19, the Bible says he will come and give his own laws and commandments, and so the people should obey him. That is the law. Then when you come to the prophet, we are talking about what Isaiah said about Jesus, what Jeremiah said about Jesus, what Micah, what Malachi, all the prophets, what they said about Jesus. And so that is what Jesus said, I have come to fulfill all these.
So in effect, it does not apply to tithing.
No. So Jesus is simply saying that I have come to fulfill the law so that it can be done away. And I want you to look at something in Luke chapter 24 quickly, then we will jump to maybe 44. And then Jesus said in Luke chapter 24 verse 25, then he said to them, O foolish ones, and slow of heart to believe in all that the prophet hath spoken. Verse 26, ought not the Christ to have suffered these things and to enter into his glory? Verse 44, then he said to them, these things must be fulfilled, which were written in the law of Moses and the prophets and the Psalms concerning me. So Jesus is saying, after he has resurrected from the dead, that in Matthew chapter 5, verse 17 downwards, I told you that I have not come to fulfill, to destroy the law, but to fulfill it. And so here, I am telling you that this is what was said, and I have been able to fulfill them. Then verse 46, listen to what, thus it is written, and thus it was necessary for the Christ to suffer and to rise from the dead the 3rd day, and that repentance and remission of sin should be preached